button over here, and that's preparing. All right, welcome everybody. I'm John Cooper with the John Cooper Real Estate Group, and today I'm really excited. I've got one of my favorite inspectors here in Central Vancouver Island in Mr. Darryl Saam of Discovery Home Inspection. Darryl, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I know how much you love doing video, so appreciate you putting yourself out of your comfort zone.
And well, thank you very much for having me.
Darryl, I wanted to get you on here because we see our role as advisors in the real estate process to really just help people mitigate their risk. And we know when you're buying houses, risk elimination is not possible. I always say you're not buying your house from Costco. There is some risk. But hopefully if we have good guidance and good advisors around you, you can do your best to mitigate that risk. And with this market going on right now, I know, I've got myself and 3 buyer specialists on our team, and virtually every trade we're going into, whether it be on the buy side or the sell side, is a bidding war. And we're seeing more often than not, the winners of these are often unconditional offers. Unconditional meaning no financing, no inspection. Of course, you and I know better than most just how risky that can be. And, so just speaking of the market conditions, Darryl, what impact has this market had on your business and your volume of inspections? And are you seeing the same thing we're seeing in terms of this reduction in inspection conditions?
Yes, in the last couple of years, it's been lower and lower pretty well every month. And so we've gone down probably 80%. 80 to 85%.
Wow.
And this has happened, as you know, John, more than anybody, over the years that happens, but it's usually month to month, not year to year. So this has gone on for so long that there's a large amount of houses that have sold without any advisory or without any inspections. And I know with us, I know it's as well with the competition. So many people there's just no inspections out there. So
yeah, well, and we see this over and over. I mean, and they're hard conversations for us, for those of us that again, I always say, for me and my organization, we are not in the business of doing deals. We're in the business of helping guide people to great decisions, and part of that means measuring risk with as much detail as we can with them, and using our experience to tell them how to mitigate that risk. But when we look at buying a home here in Central Island, I mean, there's a lot of risk. There's, I've been through hundreds of home inspections with you and your team and my clients, and I know what's out there and the kind of issues. So I wanted to get your take on some of the most common major issues that you're coming across that could be typically mitigated by some semblance of an inspection, whether it be a full inspection or a product we're going to talk about later, which is your mini inspection, for lack of a better word.
Okay, well, probably the biggest issue would be water ingress in a house. That's huge, whether that's a plumbing leak and that's another thing that we've talked to a lot of people over this last year. We've had a very wet fall and winter, as you know, and so there's been a lot of water ingress, and usually with houses that are going to get some water ingress because of this flow, usually has signs of past water ingress. So that's what you can usually pick up pretty quickly. Another thing I would say besides the plumbing would be the electrical. And I find this all the time. People will say, yep, this house got 100 amp, because they're looking at the panel itself is rated for 100 amp, but the main breaker is 60. So many people have moved in and found out they can't do anything upgrades for the house whatsoever because the electrical is 60, and that can be caught real quick as well.
And that's an immediate insurance issue. Immediately, a 60 amp service has to be addressed.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, asbestos, you can't tell the asbestos in a house unless you have it tested, with the exception of the attic. So we all know about vermiculite. CMHC has guided for decades, has guided people just to blow insulation on top of the vermiculite, which isn't the greatest thing, but that's a hard thing to find if you're not getting inspections as well. So that's another pretty costly thing to miss. So,
and relatively easy to discover if you know what you're looking for.
yes, if you do some digging. Yeah. And we've found some pretty inventive ways that people like to, move it aside.
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced your one of your inspectors finding it where if they'd have just done a basic inspection, it'd have passed, and because of how you've trained them on no, look here and look here and look here, here they are. We found it here, and clearly it was an effort to hide whether it was the current owner or previous owner, whatever.
That's
but
right.
but
Yeah.
it was only discovered because of just some experience and knowing where to look.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So I think those are probably some of the biggest issues.
Okay.
And again, and insurance companies ask, as you know, hundreds of questions about a house. So there's some of the basic ones that people don't really see. We can usually find as well with the advisor. So
But you bring up a great point, because I have found that since we have been doing so many trades where we're unable to get an inspection, or we're representing sellers, actually more often we're representing sellers, and the buyers, the offer that we selected didn't have an inspection. And of course, I'm getting hit up with hundreds of questions after about the home, and the seller doesn't know and I don't know, because we're not experts in I'm not going to put my expertise into an insurance situation because that's not what I'm trained in. Is articulating a home's inventory for the purpose of insurance is not my specialty, so all those questions that we would normally just say it's in the inspection report, they're having to take guesses, and I think you're probably going to see some future insurance challenges over some of the whether purposeful or unknowing misrepresentations of how the home's built, simply because the people filling out the paperwork aren't experts.
Yep.
So that's really good. So in the old days of a regular, more balanced market, I mean, almost every home gets a home inspection, because that is really the most valuable risk mitigation tool in buying a single family detached home. A home inspection has the biggest impact on our risk reduction in that purchase. And you've come up with a really creative way that's going to allow people that are in the position where the speed of the negotiations, the bidding war is moving at a pace that's not going to allow them to do a full comprehensive home inspection, whether it be access because there's so many showings going on, or a tenant, or simply the timeline that they have. Sometimes these bidding wars come unannounced and you don't have time to prepare. But so tell me about this. You're calling it the advisor service. Explain that to anyone watching.
Okay, so what it is we understand the issues that you guys have when you're writing an offer and whatnot. And so we try to figure out the best way that we can inform your clients of the basics of the house. Obviously, I'm all about a full home inspection, and that's because we check over 1,000 items in a full home inspection. So it's very intense. But with this market not allowing for home inspections, we try to figure out the best way that we can mitigate that. So I was called to an elderly lady's home. She was having water issues in the basement. So I just went to look. She hired us to come look. We were going to talk about sump pumps and stuff like that. And when I got there, we were in her basement. It was an old home. And she had mentioned that she bought the house just recently and she could not get a home inspection. And she really kind of wanted to get one, but because of the market, she couldn't. So this was a surprise to her, the water coming into her basement. So I just said to her real quickly, I said, well, I'm looking at the water ingress in your basement. Do you want me just to tell you a few things that I see in it? I was there for 5 minutes. And she said, sure. And so I let her know the signs of the past termite infestation. There was some carpenter ants. There was some of the main pillars in the basement that were rotten.
This is in 5 minutes of you walking.
This was not even 5 minutes.
Okay.
And I let her know that, easily how to fix it as well. That it wasn't because I could tell the stress in her face. And then she asked me to stop because it was over until I explained to her that it was a pretty easy fix. And then she was fine. But that got me thinking that in the time, if we could sneak in while say, for example, an agent was showing the house, and if we had a half an hour or so in there, we could check the big issues. We could go in the crawl space, check for water ingress. If there's vapor barriers, we could check the electrical quickly, the panel, the main electrical, what the clients have to choose in the future if they're gonna expand the home or whatever. We can, as long as there's access, and that's going to be the trickiest part, is access to the attic during a showing, because a lot of times it's in a closet and there's a bunch of stuff. And if it's a full home inspection, the sellers know to move everything so we can get up into the attic. So that would be the only thing, is access into the attic. But as long as we can get in there, we can jump in there and we can take a quick look at the insulation, and we can jump on the roof and take a look at the foundation around the outside. So that's kind of covering some of the biggest issues in home. At least it gives your clients a little bit more knowledge of the condition. The roof's 10 years old, got lots of life left. Or if you're going to buy the home, it's great, it's not leaking, but you might want to get a roofer up there to check out the lifespan of the roof. And so we can give some basic ideas of the major issues of the major conditions of the house. And again, it's not a full home inspection, but at least it's some knowledge.
Would it also help them answer some of those insurance questions?
Yes, because if we get into a crawl space or an attic, we're able to see the main water shut off. We're able to see the main plumbing.
You can see with the plumbing.
We just had one of our inspectors, Steve, go in, and the very first thing he saw in about 20 seconds was it was all stage 1 polybutylene. So
stage 1,
that was very important to put on there for insurance purposes. And stage 1 polybutylene, if it's not leaking, it's not a rush to fix it right now, but it's something that needs to be fixed, that at least they can understand that when they're doing renovations in the future, they'll want to upgrade their plumbing. So it kind of puts it in their mind, and they can budget that for later.
And get proper insurance coverage, so you don't have someone deny coverage because you misrepresented the plumbing or something.
Exactly.
Like that.
And the type of the roofing and all that. So as long as, if we can get into that crawl space, that's pretty important, or the basement, anything visual that we can see, we can mark it down pretty quick. So how much time,
what's the time range that this inspection, what are you calling these again? You're calling
it's an advisor.
So this advisor check. How much time does it typically take, and what is the cost, if you don't mind going?
Well, we would take as much time as they give us.
Fair.
It's typically the time of a showing. So
it could be 20 minutes to an hour and a half, depending.
Exactly.
On how it goes. Yeah.
So we're figuring it's probably averaging half an hour. So, but then if we can spend a few minutes, we've been to thousands of inspections, obviously, and we see that usually after the showing, the agent will walk outside with the clients and they start talking, and so we can, if it's right, we can take that time to quickly go around the outside and stuff. So if it's like a half an hour, 20 minutes to half an hour inside the house, we can take a few minutes after on the outside to maybe jump up on the roof and take a look at the siding and the foundation and stuff like that. So we're thinking, like you said, between 20 minutes and an hour kind of thing. So,
all right. And what should someone budget for the service?
It would be $199 plus GST.
Okay, that's right away, Darryl, I'm already here to say that would be the best $199 that you could ever possibly spend as you head into a bidding war or a purchase opportunity.
And if you're, for example, have 3 houses that you're looking at, then it would be the $199 plus GST for that, and then $99 an hour after. So if there's like a second house or something like that. So.
All right. That's awesome. In my mind, you'd be crazy not to do that. And I'm not saying this in any way to drum up business for you, Darryl, but in my mind, the peace of mind that you're going to have by just that quick look and the amount of headache that it's going to save you would be, I think if you could make it happen, you'd be crazy not to. Give me a sense of how much lead time. I know this can vary, your workload's going to vary, but just generally speaking, how much notice should someone be prepared to provide in order to get one of these? What's appreciated? What's the shortest? What's ideal? That kind of thing.
Right now, what's ideal would be just a few days. Okay. We can, with this program, because it's very important with this market, we could do it for the next day. So the most important thing is it was very done. We've been working on this since last November. So, but there's a lot of litigating factors, consumer protection, Minister of Housing. And so we've had to go through all of it. We've gone through consumer protection. They weren't crazy about it because it's not a full inspection. And so then, explaining that,
something's better than nothing.
Even your name, consumer protection, how about we start protecting the consumers here? So we went to our MLAs and the Minister of Housing, and they're the ones that make the rules. So they thought it was a great idea. So they lined it up again with consumer protection. So it's taken quite a while to do this. So the only daunting part is that we needed to make sure that we had the proper contracts and to make sure that the clients understand that this isn't a full home inspection.
Yeah.
So that's just the most important part. So,
yeah.
so that takes a little bit of time. So
Yeah.
we could definitely do it. I mean, we did one, I think it was such a panic that it was that afternoon that we did one. So
yeah,
we can make it work, but ideally it would be a couple of days. So,
okay. That's amazing, Darryl. That is such a good tool in what is a challenging market. I mean, that's the two biggest challenges we have are financing and inspection. And inspection has always been, well, if you want the house, you're just going to have to take the risk. And, I always say my advice is never buy a home without an inspection, followed by, but if you want to buy a house in this market, you're probably going to have to buy it without an inspection. So it's like, I hate it, but it's the truth.
It's the truth. Yeah.
And so, good on you for being a leader in your industry and working to get something like this out to the consumers. Again, anytime we're getting a home inspection, buying a home, people have got used to making purchases without risk in our modern era, with 2-year return policies and all the rest of it. And buying a home, there can be some big wins, as we're seeing in people's net worths right now that have invested in real estate, but there's also huge risks. There is no reward without risk, and and the risk side of it generally falls onto the condition of the home, and either an insurance related issue or something to do with the home's the way it's constructed or a deficiency within the home. So that's great. And I wanted to tell anyone that hasn't used you, and I've used a bunch of different home inspectors, because really, as you know, the client guides the ultimate decision. And what I really love, I just want to take the opportunity to say what I really like about your company is, a home inspector, and correct me if I'm wrong, when they go through their inspection training, they're trained to the modern code of the day, and they're trained to compare the home to the most modern version of the building code. And is that fair?
Well, we do that for new homes, but
okay.
In our standards of practice, we're not allowed to do code inspections per se, but yes, we do compare what is there to what it should be.
So that's what I mean. And I wanted to point on that, whereas I think a lot of inspections that I've been through, they stop there. And so it's, hey, this is the code and this is here. And so I've marked that on my report. And I think it's easy to train somebody to be able to do that, because they just need to understand the code, and then they can go and say, well, this isn't like the code, and put it in the report. In my mind, that doesn't require a ton of training to get to that level. And I think a lot of inspectors have all the formal training, and they're great at doing just that. What I like about you and the inspectors that you choose to bring onto your organization is they're not just trained home inspectors. They are building experts. They are construction experts. They have experience in it. And so when you come up with the differential from the code compliancy, your guys can put it into perspective and say, oh, well, for a home built in 1970, this is actually in really good shape, as much as it could use some updating in this regard relative to modern code. This really is functioning as it was designed to, and represents quality construction that just doesn't meet today's code. That's a totally different conversation and understanding for the client to know that, okay, it doesn't meet the code, but it's still solid and I don't have to stress about it. To me, that requires more training than just what it takes to be a home inspector and get your certification.
Oh, for sure. And I'll give you a prime example. There's been hundreds of times that we've done, and a lot of the houses in the old town. There's been a lot of inspections I've done. I did one for a client. He was a carpenter and a young fella. And he said the biggest issue he has with the house is its 2x6 floor joist, 16-inch on center. I said, what's your problem with that? It's a 1910 house. There's no settlement whatsoever. There's not even a creak. He said, well, it's 2x6. I said, that's true grade 2x6, old fir. Good luck even getting a screw into it. And your subfloor is in plywood is 2x6 tongue and groove. So you've actually got better structure here than you would be with new code.
Yeah, perfect.
So it's knowing that stuff, and it's knowing that if there's a crack in the foundation, yeah, it's not great, but it's a settlement crack. And we've already checked 500 other items around the house to make sure that there's no settlement because of that crack.
That's
so
right.
We can tell them it's no big deal. Put some caulking in there and away we go.
And that's so important because, like I said, we're not there. It's a used home. We're not there to eliminate risk. We're not there to force the seller to give us an old home that's a new home now. We're there to measure the risk and put that risk into perspective relative to all the other features of our purchase, the price, how it meets our needs and all the rest of it. And so, to me, that's a marked difference that I've picked up on between, how your agents operate or your inspectors operate and how, not everyone else operates. A lot do, but a lot, but a lot don't. A lot are really trained on identifying the deficiencies and horrible at providing the perspective for that noted deficiency.
Well, it's the science. We look at the science of the house. The house is the one that's talking to you. So it's either works or it doesn't. There's a lot of houses, as you know, that are fairly new, that are up to code, but that's not working. And there's a lot of houses that are 100 years old that have nothing to do with code and they're working great. So
I always say
the house is individual. So
I always say the most riskiest homes to purchase are brand new homes because the issues that haven't presented themselves yet and we can't find them. Where a home, even a home that's 4 years old or 5 years old, we're our ability to find the issues is a lot higher than it is in something that's like just got the occupancy permit. And so
100%.
a lot of people will mistakenly decide not to get inspection on a new home. And in fact, I'd say some of our biggest, saves where we've saved someone from inheriting an issue have come in some of our new construction inspections.
Well, 100%, especially there was some new homes in Parksville that used a HVAC company that was famous for doing some of the largest mistakes. And those are the parts that don't get inspected by the city inspectors. So actually we inspected 3 of the houses, and I don't like to get in arguments or anything with people, but it was wrong. And some of the cases, the way that they did the return air, it was sending people to the hospital because there was mold in the crawl space. And so it actually shut that, we didn't mean to, but it shut that guy down. Train actually dropped him as a representative of them. Those are all brand new homes. It doesn't happen very often, and I don't mean to scare people whatsoever, but it's just sometimes this stuff happens and you pick it up at an inspection. So
no, a lot of people, I've even had them say, "Oh, I don't need to get it inspected. It's the city inspected it."
They don't use ladders.
I'm just like, you do not want to. Nothing against city inspectors, but it is a totally different animal than what we're talking about, and they are not. They're not going through a home anywhere near with the level of detail that a home inspector goes through. And that's, the things that are often discovered in these new construction inspections are like, a lot of the time the builders are like, man, I can't believe we forgot that. Like, they're just honest mistakes that happen in oh, wow. Like, thank God you discovered that now, and we'll fix it right away. But nobody saw it during the whole course of construction because nobody went through the home within the systematic way that an experienced home inspector does. So.
Exactly. We've had a couple of the large home building companies on the island that actually hired us to do an inspection of the new home before they did the walkthrough with the new buyer, so that they could minimize. He said the amount that I'm paying for the home inspection minimizes, it's half the cost it would be for me to spend the days here looking myself.
That's smart.
So it's it's pretty important. So,
all right, Darryl, well, we're out of time here, but thank you for I know you're busy and taking time out of your day to educate our viewers, and big fan of Darryl and his team at Discovery Home Inspection. I'll post their link to their website down in the comments section where we're posting this video on Facebook, and along with Darryl's contact information. So if you ever need an expert opinion on your home, whether you want a full inspection or just an advisor look through, which I'm going to be recommending to all our purchasing clients now, Darryl's got a plan for that. So thanks, Darryl.
Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Have a good weekend. We'll see you soon.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.